Okay, so welcome everyone to this talk on mobile application security or the common security pitfalls in Android and iOS applications. So how many of you are like a bit familiar with the mobile application security? Okay, so like ensuring that the code you develop is secure enough, right? Yeah, so we'll go through different points in which like Android and iOS applications can be vulnerable, how you can check for that, some of the previous work which I've done in identifying various security issues in popular mobile applications. So this entire talk is a kind of a concise version of what I have done over the past few years and selecting some of the really good case studies from that. And I've put in a lot of videos as the demos because I was not sure whether the internet will be working fine or not, right? So my name is Aditya Gupta, and I'm the founder of a security firm called Atify. It's based in India, and we do specialized mobile application security. So also at the end of this talk, I'll also be releasing a secure coding guideline, which you can follow through in order to build your secure mobile applications. So a bit about me. I've been working on mobile application security since the past 4-5 years. And the first talk that I gave on Android security was, I think, back in 2010 or 11. And that is mostly what I do, breaking mobile applications, educating developers on how to build secure applications, and so on. So I've also discovered some of the security issues in these different kind of mobile applications from Chrome, WebKit, Facebook, PayPal, and so on. And I've given a bunch of different talks and trainings at various conferences. And I've also authored a book called Learning Pen Testing for Android. So if you want to get started into Android security, you can also check out this book. So the agenda for today is, it's breaking down into 4 categories or 4 different stages. First, we'll understand what's the need of mobile security or how and where developers go wrong. And thereon, we'll see how attackers actually attack your mobile application, or some of the vulnerabilities which you have seen online, how they actually happened. And some of the lessons which you can take from the security mistakes which other people have done so that you don't do it in your application. And finally, the solutions. So if you want to build a secure application, how do you actually do it? So if you talk of a generalized version of Android and iOS application, at a very, very high level point of view, they are pretty much the same. Both are, like, I know many of you might disagree with that, but we are talking in a generalized concept. So both are archive packages. So if you just extract a Android APK, you get the main classes.dex file. Or if you extract a iOS IPA file, you get the application binary. So that is where you can look into in order to get started to identify security vulnerabilities. And if you talk of reversing, if you have a sample APK or if you download something from the App Store or Play Store, how do you reverse the application and figure out the security issues? So in Android, it's pretty straightforward. You can use tools like APK tool in order to get to the source code and then look into further security issues. In iOS, it's a bit difficult because you only get some of the class and method information. So we'll talk a bit about that. And both of the Android and iOS application are pretty much vulnerable. So if you're a developer not ensuring that your application is secure, in most of the cases it will be vulnerable. So where do developers go wrong? The main reason because developers go wrong is when they start building out the application, they don't think about security at all. And that is something which comes as an afterthought. Like once I build the application, then I can have a look at the security, which often doesn't work out. Because if you have a really critical bug, it might take you a lot of architectural changes in order to secure it. So I'll give you some case studies of that. And also some of you might have like strict deadlines to follow, so you push the application as soon as possible, reach out to the users, and so on. And some of the times you might not have enough resources or enough knowledge of the tools or automation in order to identify the vulnerabilities. So let's take an example of a very simple application. An application is communicating with a web endpoint over API. And let's say a login is happening. So the application sends the login credentials to the web endpoint, and it sends back some authentication token or cookies, right? So what could be some of the possible attack surface in this particular example? Like anyone? Where a security issue might be possible? Uh, Not encrypting the tunnel, everything happening over insecure channel. Anything else? Send in like fake response. Exactly. So that is one of the things that can happen if, let's say, a decision is being taken on the application based on what response is coming back, an attacker can manipulate the response and send in some spoofed or modified response. So we'll also see example of that. So on a generalized perspective, these three are the potential attack surface. So one is, how is the application secure enough? Like if someone gets hold of your application, will he be able to see all your API keys, all your crypto algorithms, or anything sensitive within your application? The second is the entire communication happening securely? Whether you're using SSL and not taking care of SSL pinning. How many of you know what SSL pinning is? Okay, just 2 of you, 3, nice. And the third is the data getting stored on the device securely? So if you store something like auth token or credentials on the device, whether you are ensuring that the file permissions are correct or whether it is encrypted properly before getting stored, right? So this is something which also happened with an application called Moonpig, which is a really popular app in UK where you can order online different photos and print it, so on. So an attacker just reversed the API, or like just in technical terms, set up a proxy and analyze what is going through. And by just simply modifying some of the parameters, he was able to get the credit card numbers of the entire millions of users. And they didn't fix the vulnerability in like a year. So he finally published it, and finally Moonpig has to take down the application for a couple of months. Imagine how much of a loss it would have been for Moonpig, right? So this is what can happen if you don't take care of mobile security. And a recent report by Arxon also claims like 75% of mobile applications are insecure at a particular level, right? And this is just an example of a current world example. This is a medical device utility, which is supposed to be really secure. But if you take the Android application, reverse it, you get the password with which everything is encrypted. And the password is really good. It's Bob the Builder. I think one of the childhood heroes of the developers. Right. So you always need to make sure that whatever you put in the app can be seen by someone who just installs the application on the device. So how attackers attack your mobile app? There are two different ways to identify vulnerabilities and exploit it. One is the static way and the other is dynamic. And it's pretty much obvious. So static is what you can do without interacting a lot with the application. So you simply reverse the app, see the source code, identify the vulnerabilities. Dynamic is you run the application, maybe attach a debugger to it, do some runtime manipulation, inspect the network component, and so on. Right. So we'll go through some of the vulnerabilities in both the categories. And I've divided it into 3 parts: the network-based vulnerabilities, database vulnerabilities, and the application-specific vulnerabilities. So in network, a couple of things can go wrong. Either you are having a lot of API-based insecurities. I'll give an example of that, where it was a social networking application, and they had a vulnerability in their chat API. So we'll go into that. And then insecure decisions. So one of the application which I was recently auditing was having a local PIN setup. So whenever you open the application, you need to enter the PIN, which gets sent to the web server, and it sends a response back, either 200 or 403 if it is not a valid one. So if you simply modify the response and make it from 403 to 200, it accepts the PIN and grants you access to the application. So these are some of the examples of the vulnerabilities that you might see in real world. And third is not securing the traffic properly. Either you're using plain text HTTP or using SSL without SSL pinning. So this is the application which I was talking about. It's called At the Pool, and it allowed you, like, if you're in a room or if you're in a mall, you can just chat to the users nearby you. So it's a location-based social networking. And I started looking at the application. I first simply installed it just to get an idea of it, what the application is. But then I started to analyze the network traffic. And this is what I saw in the conversation request. So it had the API.atThePool chat field ID1 and ID2. And ID1 and ID2 are the two users who are talking to each other. And it turned out, if you simply modify or change the values of ID1 and ID2, you get the conversation of any user. Right? So I'll just give you a quick example, like a video demo. Yeah. So this was the ID1 and ID2. So I simply went ahead and wrote a Python script which iterated through all the user IDs and figured out which of them are the valid conversations or not. And once you run the script, you see 500 for the conversation that does not exist and 200 for a conversation that exists. And if you took any of these and opened it up, you get the entire conversation which happened between those two users. So this is the entire conversation happening. And even this application was like hugely funded and was really popular on TechCrunch and the other places. Right? And it had like millions of users. That was, yeah. So moving on to the next vulnerability was a quiz application, which is QuizUp. So if someone of you might be interested in quizzing, you might know about this application. So it's by a company called Plain Vanilla Games. And they have a huge consumer base. And I was always interested in quizzing, so I decided to download this application and challenge some of my friends to play quiz with me. But since I wasn't that good, I couldn't win. So what I decided is to analyze the network traffic and see what they're passing. So just by identifying a vulnerability, I was able to score the perfect score a number of times. And I was in the like top 10 leaderboards of that particular game. So just to show you a video demo. So these guys, they have implemented SSL, but they didn't implement SSL pinning. Now, can anyone tell me what SSL pinning is? Okay, so I'll quickly explain what SSL pinning is. So normally in SSL, everything happens over a secure channel, where you verify everything with a certificate and so on. But what if someone is able to intercept the traffic with a rogue certificate or a malicious certificate which fakes the SSL connection? So with SSL pinning, you actually verify that the certificate in between is the trusted one. So no one is able to intercept the network traffic with another certificate. So in this case, they didn't implement SSL pinning, and that is why I was able to intercept the traffic. So I'll move on to the script I wrote. So what they did is, as soon as you start a game, all the response that comes contains the solution of the entire quiz. So you simply needed to parse the JSON and start a quiz with the network proxy setup. And as soon as you start the game, you get the answers of all the questions, right? And these guys, like, they had a previous security issue, they fixed it, and then again this happened. And I got in touch with the CTO over there. I discussed the solution, and this is what you can do. So it was like, I always thought there could be a vulnerability in SSL, but I didn't ever see it in action. So finally, we have to make a lot of architectural changes, and it should take around 3 to 4 months, which ultimately took like 8 months. So this is the impact of the network-based security issues. So if you're on a mobile application, ensure that all the APIs that you're using is secure enough. And then this another case study. So everyone might be knowing about Uber, right? So Uber is a cab sharing application. So you can book a cab with your mobile application and the cab arrives and you get into it. So Ola is a similar to Uber but in India. And it's like one of the biggest competitors of Ola. So they were doing like everything securely, like almost everything. So they were having a network communication and they used the unique user IDs of each user. So they gave anyone who registers a unique user ID. But in one of the requests where you actually put money and see your recent transactions, they ended up using email as a parameter. And it turned out that if you just change the URL parameter, you get the details of wallet and transactions and the entire recent history of any user possible. So I just built a web dashboard for it with a live proxy setup and analyze whenever an email comes, it just flags vulnerable at the right-hand corner. So I can see that this might be a suspicious request, and I can modify and get the response. So you can put in any email address, you get the entire details of that particular user. Right. So this was all about network-based vulnerabilities. So what you need to do in network-based vulnerabilities is ensure that you set up a proxy, analyze what is happening, try it out with a rogue certificate, see whether SSL pinning is implemented properly. And often many times when you implement SSL pinning, you might implement it like very straightforward in the code. And an attacker can decompile or reverse your application, remove those lines of code, and make a new application. And then he can see the entire traffic happening. So make sure even if you're implementing an SSL pinning, it is implemented securely. So moving on to the database vulnerabilities, it usually happens in a couple of types. So one of the common ways is either you have the read-write permission for the entire world for your particular file. So if you're, let's say, storing username credentials in an XML file in your shared preferences or in the SD card, you need to ensure that it is being stored securely with the proper permissions. Or you can store data in clear text. So if any other application has access to the SD card, he can also see your sensitive information. Or if you're storing it in memory, you also need to make sure that it is properly encrypted. And then you have a couple of side channel leakage, like the logging and so on, right? So these are some of the things which you need to take care in the database vulnerability section. So this is a previous example of Skype of an insecure data storage. And this is what the data directory looked like. Can anyone identify a security issue here? Yeah, all the files, including the main.db, which stores all your conversation or the voicemail, all of them have read-write permissions. So any other application can also access your entire Skype conversations and your voicemails and all the other settings. And this was actually a platform-related security issue. So the developers trusted the Android platform to be secure, but it turned out that if you create something with the Android NDK and create a file with it, it gets stored or created with a read-write permissions for everyone. So unless you have specified that this needs to be only read-write for this particular user, it will be vulnerable by default. And then this was another interesting example of a really popular application called KeepSafe. So it allowed the users to store pictures and set it up with a password and make sure everything is secure. And how do they store pictures? So they stored it in MNT SD card, which is the external storage. And the developers were really smart enough to put a dot in the start so that the directory is hidden. And this is what they think is how to make applications secure, right? So if you went inside this directory, you have all the pictures in, like, without any encryption. And then there's this application called Vine, which is by Twitter. So it allows you to record short videos and publish it to your stream. And in the first look, everything looks secure. But in the edge case, like if you record a video, but suddenly a call comes and you go out the application, or if you didn't publish the video online, so where does the data get stored? So turned out that the data actually gets stored in the MNT SD card, and that is with entire read-write permissions. And just to create an exploitation scenario like how this could get exploited, I created a malicious application called Vine Uploader, which just looks like a normal application with a picture, but it takes the videos from your Vine and uploads it to a remote server. So this is the Vine Uploader. The application starts, there's nothing in the app. And if you go to the web server, your Vine video has been uploaded. So this could be one of the exploitation scenario of if you're using insecure data storage. So any other malicious application or even a normal application can have the malicious code inbuilt, and they can take advantage of your vulnerability. So I reported to Twitter like a year back, and I suggested them to use something called as Conceal, which is a really nice encryption library by Facebook, which you guys should also use if you're storing something sensitive on the SD card. And they had this bug bounty program where they reward the security researchers with some $1,000. And now moving on to the application-specific vulnerabilities. Now this is a really long list of what vulnerabilities you find in Android and iOS application. And you can spend months reading about all the different vulnerabilities. So you have got this content provider leakage, and insecure application components, custom permission-based vulnerabilities, method swizzling, and tons of other vulnerability. So I'll just cover a couple of them, just to give you an idea of how some of the application-specific vulnerabilities look like. So anyone has heard of Box? So it's a cloud-based file storage. It's kind of like one of the competitors of Dropbox. And it had this really nice functionality that if you don't want anyone else who has access to your device, access to your files, you can set up a passcode. So anyone who opens the application gets a passcode. And unless they know the correct pattern or the correct number, they won't be able to enter the application. So what vulnerability was there? There was a new functionality or new feature called ADB backup, which was introduced by Android in 4.0. And by default, it is true. So unless you ensure that ADB backup is set to false, your application is vulnerable to this vulnerability. And the vulnerability is an attacker can take a backup of the entire data directory, modify some of the components, and put those components back. So just to put it into perspective, so this is how you take a backup, just like ADB backup, specifying the package name, what file you want to store it in. And once you have the backup, you get the entire data directory, which won't be otherwise accessible on a non-rooted device. So this is something which can even be exploited on a non-rooted device with an application which has no permissions. So it takes the backup of the entire application directory. And if you look at the application directory, there's a mypreference.xml. So I got curious into what this particular file is. And I looked at mypreference.xml, and it had this really nice thing called pin code. And then it looks secure, like it is obviously encrypted value and can't be vulnerable. But it turned out, if you simply remove this line and restore the backup, the pin will be gone. Right? So there were like tons of vulnerabilities in Box, which I reported like a year back. So even the pin code functionality on the iOS was having a security issue. So if you know of iOS security a bit, there's a tool called Cycrypt, which allows you to hook into iOS applications at the runtime. So let's say if you have a method called isAuthenticated and the return type is Boolean, you can patch that method to always return true, no matter what the password is. So this is what you can do in iOS very easily. Or you can even invoke any methods you want. So I just did a SSH into my iOS device and used a tool called ClassDumpZ, which decrypts or dumps the information of an iOS application. And if you have downloaded the app from the App Store, it is encrypted by default. So you have to use another tool called Clutch in order to decrypt it and then run ClassDumpZ on it. So this is the application being decrypted. And once the application is decrypted, you can run ClassDumpZ on it. So ClassDumpZ dumps all the class and the method names. And you can look for interesting methods. So I just searched for methods starting with passcode. And there was this method called passcode did succeed. And it has the type void. And if something has void, you can like easily call it without any putting in more efforts. So I just copied the passcode did succeed, that this is the method I want to call, and hooked into the application using Cycrypt. And if you're familiar with a bit of iOS programming, this is how you go into a particular element. So I looked at what view controllers or what screen it is in. And I went to that screen and simply called the passcode did succeed method. And the passcode screen actually just goes away and you get access to the entire application. And yeah, suggesting you to try it out. Yeah, so for this one, you need to have a jailbroken device. And the box security team is not that really good, because I reported like 10-15 different vulnerabilities. They were like really slow to patch them with no credits at all. Right. So you can check out all the vulnerabilities which I have discovered in box at the blog. So there was this another vulnerability in WebView. I guess everyone is familiar with WebView, right? So a web view is normally, if you're talking in a general term, it's kind of like an embedded browser inside your application where you can display web content or HTML content. Now, if you have an HTML content, it will have other components as well, right? Like JavaScript and CSS. Now, do you think the JavaScript component of WebView can interact with the Java component of the application? Yes, obviously with the JavaScript bridge which you specify. And if you're doing everything over insecure channel, anyone can intercept and modify the JavaScript and exploit the application. Exploit as in call any methods they want, grab the entire application data section, delete a file or upload that file somewhere else. They basically get the entire control of the application just with a simple WebView vulnerability. So this is the JavaScript which I injected in the response, and this simply did was took the webview.db and simply deleted that file, right? So instead of deleting, you can also upload it, and this also works on a non-rooted device, right? So WebView is one of the really popular vulnerabilities, of which like 95% of the Android apps were vulnerable. And the reason being, if you're using an ad SDK or an advertisement SDK in your app, chances are that the SDK is vulnerable, making your entire application vulnerable. So always ensure that any third-party SDK that you use, you check that for security. So this is a video of a Bing application which had a similar WebView vulnerability. And this is how an attacker can easily exploit the application. So the user is using Bing as normal, and the attacker is manipulating the traffic in the background. And if you notice over here, there will be a new application installed. And the new application also got started using the AIM or the activity manager. Right. Yeah, so unless you have a router device, you can't install a new application. But if you don't have a router device, what you can do is you can get the entire application data. Yeah. So for example, InMobi is one of the popular SDKs, and they had these methods like take camera picture, and all of these exposed with JavaScript interface. And out of the top 10 ad libraries, 7 of them were vulnerable. Right. So including the Google AdMob and all. And next we come to some of the Android specific vulnerabilities. How many of you know content providers? Okay. So content providers in Android are used to store and share information. So it makes lives of developers easier in order to maybe interact with the SQLite databases, add some values to it, or retrieve some values. So if you are using content provider to interact with the database, even if you have taken care of the database security, chances are you might not have taken care of content provider security. And if you have a vulnerability in the content provider, your database will also get exposed to all the other applications. And up till Android version 4.1, all the content providers were exported by default. So unless you secure it, you are really, really vulnerable. So there was a vulnerability which I discovered long back in 2012 in a popular application called Catch, which ultimately got acquired by Apple. So they had all this functionality of storing private notes with passcode and all those other things, but the content provider was exported. So any other application can get access to the content providers and finally get access to the data, even though if it's a private note. And if you want to check your own application, there's a really easy utility called Droser. And it's kind of an Android application assessment framework. So it's open source, you can download it, you can also build modules for it. So you just start up Droser, check out what is the attack surface for your application. It will tell you what different components are exported. And based on that, you can find out like what all content providers are there. So in this case, we have the package name and the final content URI. And if you simply query the content URI and get the data, this means that any other application can also get that particular data. Right. And it's a really easy tool to get started and figure out a couple of security issues in your Android application. Sorry. And the next example is of Dropbox. So if you're familiar with the Android manifest code, can you identify a vulnerability in the content providers? And just to make it a bit more easier, you just have to look between the provider tags. So is there something that looks like could be vulnerable for you? Yeah. So it's granting the URI permission to the path prefix of /. So the Dropbox developers were really smart. So what they thought, let's add a bit more security to content providers. So they went to the Android developers website, figured out that grant URI permission is what you can do, and Android path prefix is how you limit it. But what they forgot to read is the path prefix is not a relative path, but an absolute path in Android. So instead of enhancing security, they expose all their data to everyone else. And in order to exploit it, you simply have to write a malicious application with all those parameters. And there's a file called prefs.db, which stores all your authentication, account information, and all of that. You create an Android application, you install it on the device. It simply says hello world when the user opens it. When the user goes back to Dropbox, the prefs.db gets uploaded to the public folder. So now you have access to his authentication token, cookies, emails, and whatnot. So coming to the solutions, I guess most of you might be already using Android Lint. But what many of you not know is Android Lint is a really good security utility as well. So I was having a conversation with the Android security team last month, and what they were like really upset about is no one actually uses Android Lint for security. And if you simply look at the security functionalities in Android Lint, it detects some 25, 26 different vulnerabilities. So if you simply run the code in Android Lint and look for the security issues, you can at least fix 50% of the bugs which you might have. And on top of that, there's one more additional tool called Find Security Bugs. So in the last talk, there was a discussion of Find Bugs, and this tool is kind of an advanced version of Find Bugs, but only from a security perspective. And this is one of the really active projects by both the developer and security community. It's also open source. So you can download it. Maybe you can even integrate with your CI process to run, like, if it's a high-level security issue, the test is failed, and so on. So you can download Find Security Bugs. It can also help you while writing the code by telling you that, for example, this file that you're creating is not securely created. So all these kind of security issues can be prevented with like some easy open source tools. So coming to the conclusions, pen test your application before you publish. Always attack your application from an attacker's perspective rather than simply looking at it from a developer point of view. So what if an attacker got hold of my application? What can he possibly do? Intercept the traffic, reverse the application, use some automated tools. Also, there's a really great need of educating your entire development team. So maybe you can prepare something like a checklist of secure coding guidelines. And how many of you use ProGuard for obfuscation? How many of you know that ProGuard is not secure enough that it obfuscates your app? So yeah, so a lot. Yeah, it's better than nothing. It's good for a start, but it actually doesn't help that much in obfuscation. So it might keep the easy or less skilled hackers away, but if there's a really good skilled hacker, by spending 1 or 2 hours, he can de-obfuscate your entire application. Right. So try to spend money on commercial tools for this particular matter, for obfuscating your application. Evaluate some obfuscation products and see what works best for you. Avoid storing clear text data, either in the memory, either in the data storage, internal data storage, external data storage, or while communicating over the network. Encryption libraries like Conceal is really helpful if you want to encrypt and decrypt data. And whenever you're building the application, start the thinking of security from the planning phase itself. So let's say you're building the architecture, like this is my application, this is how it communicates. So you can do a threat modeling and identify that this could be one of the possible attack points. So how do I secure this attack point now? Right. So that is what is called a threat modeling. And also, there are a good amount of material available on secure coding guidelines, but it is pretty much scattered. So what I did is I built my own secure coding guidelines based on the material that is available, plus adding inputs on my own. So you can also download it for free from the other resources at adify.me/topconf. And if you want to reach out to me, this is my email, adi@adify.com. If you want to tweet, ADI1391. So thanks a lot for attending this talk. And yeah, thank you.